You know, I think we should really drink in this new intro. Just one more time for old time's sake. Red. Wow. Start our playthrough. Wow. And I got my soda. Wow. Last one in the house. Wow. Wow.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Wow. Now it's crucial. I cannot forget. I need to start collecting these funny figurines. I have one. There are 5 scattered about. And when the ending for it comes, it sure will. But let's enjoy the squeakquel.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Get well someday, bestie.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Someday. Someday.
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him.
Do not ignore Bucket. No new content, but that's okay. Well, it'll open again later, because there is something for it, but not yet.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Yes. Kinda wish they put him in like the offices. That would also spice things up further. Ah well.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever.
Does this
Perhaps
get
his
anything?
boss's office was where he'd find answers.
I guess there's nothing new that shows up here. Ah well. Look.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I did, you can guarantee we'd be in here for hours. But alas, no stickers.
Alright, I can take a hint.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
I think there's a figure here. Hey, little guy.
You found one of them. One of the miniature
Yay.
Stanley figurines. Remember,
Little Rider.
no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't
Understandable.
buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
Oh yeah, I'm savoring it. He was on the shitter. Can I go in here? Not right now. Doesn't matter though.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it the bucket knew all along?
Maybe.
Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Now how did I miss you?
Another miniature Stanley
Another one.
figurine. This, you know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini-stands? Stanley figs? Or what about Stanlerines? Yes,
Wow.
I think I like that.
Will the cut look good? Probably not. Do I have a choice at this point? No. Where's button? Boop. Wow.
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate.
Wow.
It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him,
I wanna go up
comforting
there.
him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine.
Oh, thank God. I wonder if I can see this in real time. Yep.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Wow.
The lights rose
Gotta go.
on an enormous room packed with television screens.
Let me in.
What horrible
Let me in.
secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
Let me in. The beautiful thing of this playthrough now is I have no idea how long the video is once I cut stuff out.
The monitors jumped to life,
That's okay.
and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in
I
shock.
got my bucket.
Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea
It's not very
pigs.
safe.
The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that
Should be able
everything
just
would
to
be
walk
fine.
right down here. Oh well.
Was the bucket under the mind
Button.
control facility's influence as well?
me
Had the
fall.
bucket been told to do things
I
it
wanna
didn't
go.
wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind.
Oh well. Bucket.
No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter, his one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
The bucket. Oh, I'm here. What? Look. Look. There. I lost track of
But
time.
here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content.
5.
Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would...
Ba 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 ba.
Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over?
I don't know.
Yes,
Oh.
they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated
Wow.
their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere
Freedom.
moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. The bucket wanted to learn to roller skate.
Wow.
Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth.
Wow.
Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end.
Advanced
True, it
tactics.
was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support, and...
Whoop.
What? Wait. What was happening? Why had the door stopped? Was
Open up.
Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed? An unbearable silence filled the room,
Let me in.
lingering in uncertainty,
Let me in.
until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave.
Whoop.
Even the facility itself recognized the incredible calming
Oh,
presence
God.
of the bucket, needed the soothing
Oh, God.
warmth of the bucket, would go to any lengths not to part with the bucket. No,
Nope.
no. Stanley can't leave this place. Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms.
Plunge
Not
into
while
darkness.
this building has anything to say about it.
Oh well.
Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket.
He's got the
To be
bucket.
trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I?
Yeah.
Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
Bucket. Bucket. Computer.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Huh. Guess we'll see it on the way there. Okay. Speaking of seeing. Not yet. Could you imagine? I go this whole playthrough and I don't find him? Sad. Whatever.
The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket.
Door.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
So what do we got in here? Oh, baby. Okay. Alright, we got a lot to comb here. Bridge. Well, there's your hint immediately. Bottom text. What else we got here? Hello? Small floating objects. Okay. Oh, I think these are examples too. Yeah. It's explicitly giving you hints for locations here and there. Iglies. Thank you. I think basically if you take hints in this room, you can kind of just figure out where all of them are. Oh, look at this. This just tells you exactly where they are. Well, I mean, these last three I already know where they are. Man, this is also just telling you explicitly where they are. No bucket. Remember this. No bucket. Remember that. Water park.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be here. I had to think for a second.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. But just as Stanley was about to proceed further into the mind control facility, he tripped and fell over the railing and into the dark void below. Thankfully, he fell directly onto the bucket, which safely cushioned his fall.
Thank you, bucket.
Now, what to do next? Stanley wondered. Stanley and the bucket could find no way out of this enormous pit, and so eventually they decided that the best thing to do would be to simply get comfortable down here.
Understandable.
So they set up a little couch and relaxed. It really wasn't so bad down here. A bit cold, perhaps. After some time had gone by, they installed a few shelves as well, and a sort of kitchenette that was useful for when the bucket was craving paninis.
Understandable.
But it wasn't until the rugs and the standing lamps came in that it really started to feel like a home.
Look at this.
In fact, after some time, Stanley realized that it had been ages since he had even thought of the mind control facility at all. He'd never gotten to fully explore what was up there, never been able to unearth the many mysteries of the mind control facility. This lack of closure began to eat at him. Soon he was dwelling on his regrets, and the state of their home slowly decayed as Stanley became withdrawn and neglected the cleaning. It unsettled the bucket.
Come on, man.
Stanley wasn't usually like this. The bucket tried to reach out to him again and again, but to no avail. All Stanley could think about, all he could talk about, was going back, doing it over again, staying on the path. It was a mistake to leave the path. It was a mistake. It was a mistake. I need to do what the narrator says. I need to see the true ending. This made no sense at all to the bucket, which was simply trying to live its life down here as comfortably as possible. Yet Stanley was unconsolable. This isn't an ending. This is just a hole in the ground. The bucket sighed. True, it wasn't an ending. But it's where we happen to be. And maybe, possibly, if we accept the reality of things, maybe this will become an ending eventually. It's what the bucket was counting on.
Possibly.
The two of them waited for a very long time.
Wow. Computer.
All of his co-workers were gone.
I could do one more ending.
What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
I could maybe do more than that. I'm looking at the time and I'm realizing, wow.
Warmth spread through Stanley's arms. With the bucket in his arms again, he was home.
I could probably do a few more endings.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Okay, so we'll get to do the stairs one soonest. Yeah, the boxes. And then the red and blue will be part ways. I got it. I'm smart. Don't go in there.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Usually I used a little, recording timer on in my bottom right division. I use that to gauge how long I want to make the video. It says 26 minutes currently, but I don't know how much I spent outside of it when I had to take a little impromptu break. I mean, that spent part will be cut out of this, but who knows by how much? I don't. I'll try to make the most.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death.
You can get bonus audio if you keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Wow.
At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them.
Wow. I wonder. Can I? Wait. Can I? Whoa. Whoa. Yeah, I can go here. Success. This does nothing. I'm flipping through stuff. I can move a little bit.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how
Audio seems a
meaningless the
little
bucket's
strange.
warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death?
Go
This
out
is
in
what
style.
Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere.
Something smells
Farewell,
really good in the
Stanley.
distance. Yippee! Understandable.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral
Where's this lighting
instant,
coming from?
the bucket's life came to an end, as it was crushed violently to death.
Not the bucket. Rest in peace. Where is this? Where are these lights coming from? I mean, there's the red there. I don't know. Does it say 2? No.
It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
Bucket. Oh, I got all this extra movement. Where's my bucket? Oh yeah, I got crushed. Oh well. Wow. Bucket status.
Can you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can
Going
you
to
see the
bucket heaven.
hubris that blinded him?
Goodbye, bye,
Can you
bucket.
see that the bucket is far more noble
Goodbye,
than
bye, bucket.
Stanley will ever be in his short life?
Goodbye, bye, bucket. Bucket, go heaven now. Is it still moving? Yeah. Well, now it's... Heaven is up there, specifically. Wow. Am I doing art? Wow. Only 25. Chair. Two bucket handles. Rest in peace, attempters of two bucket handles. Chair. I'll go here. Inferno bucket. Wow. We'll go here. Okay, there's nothing here other than this. What is this? Stress bucket. I understand. Understandable. What's this way? Nothing? A lot more limited, but that's okay. Ooh, it's pretty well.
No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
Understandable. What's this? What is this way? Mystery. Oh well. Alright, you're the boss. Well. Okay.
But there is something we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong.
What is it, boss?
Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine. Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new vision.
I was gonna reset it, but I forgot. Every emotion at once. How does it happen? I don't know. But despite my own personal goofs, I'm thinking. I'll allow for one more ending.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Someday.
Stanley picked up the bucket and smiled.
Someday.
He'd never be alone again, not truly alone, not with the bucket around. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Yeah, we'll get these. There's only one more of the left door, and the other two are right doors. Like, the one the left door is down there.
Coming to a
not ready.
staircase, Stanley and
Not
the
yet.
bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Not yet.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed, but Stanley guessed the
Crushed.
correct code by sheer luck.
Smashed.
Was it that the bucket knew all along?
Mangled.
Was the bucket guiding him?
Scrumpled.
Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Scrimble. Can I just press this immediately? Oh, I can. Look at that.
Wait,
lies ahead?
Stanley said to the bucket. Can we go back up? When I was pressing those keypad buttons, there was something very intriguing about the number 3. I want to go back so I can try pressing the number 3 again.
3.
The bucket said nothing.
That way.
Here we are, said Stanley. Now I'm going to try out that number 3 button. He took the bucket over to the keypad and began absolutely slamming on the number 3 over. Wow, he said. The number
Wow.
3 is such a special button. I'm having the time of my life. Stanley looked expectantly at the bucket, but the bucket
Soda.
remained silent. This was a shock to Stanley, who had always felt such a connection with the bucket. How was this not as exciting to the bucket as it was to him? Once Stanley had had enough of the number 3, he got back in the elevator.
Okay. Lights.
Perhaps the bucket had missed something. Perhaps it had not seen how much joy Stanley got from slamming the number 3 repeatedly.
Perhaps. Only one way to find out. Like this. 3.
No, said Stanley to the bucket. You can't go on yet. Not till you understand how much the number 3 means to me. You and I have been through so much together, and I just want you to see what I see. Feel the happiness I feel. He smiled at the bucket, and the bucket said nothing.
I think when I list this part in the description, I think I'm just going to mark it as 3. Probably would make the most sense. The route stuff I've been using for pre-bucket stuff was just what the fucking Stanley Parable wiki notes them as. And then for the post-bucket stuff, I've been using the guide that's on Satan's page. The names they have.
Here we go, said Stanley. This time I'll really show you. He ran to the number 3 and began to wail on it like a musician on a beloved instrument, weaving a concerto of truth and passion. He wielded the number 3 like a fine artist would wield a paintbrush. He told stories through the number 3, stories of his dreams and hopes and fears, and the whole time he looked to his bucket for a reaction of some kind. Anything to let him know that the bucket appreciated what he was doing. The bucket conveyed absolutely nothing at all, only silence. Crushed by a wave of dejection,
I didn't even have to press
Stanley
a button.
returned to the elevator. Stanley and the bucket were so close. They'd always been there for one another. Why suddenly could the bucket not connect with this passion of Stanley's? The question caused Stanley to ruminate the whole way down the elevator. He knew that there must be a way to get through to the bucket, to communicate fully with his dear friend. Surely there was a solution, mustn't there be?
Get him a McDonald's gift certificate, not to be confused with a gift card. Surely that will please the bucket. Hey, what's this? We're going to McDonald's.
"Ah," said Stanley. "I know what to do.
No.
I know how to fully express this feeling in my heart." He decided right then and there that he would hold a press conference where he would speak to the public on all matters relating to pressing the number 3 over and over.
Wow.
He would elaborate fully on what the number 3 meant to him and why he felt so alive when pressing it.
Wow.
Then the bucket would be able to see his joy through the eyes of others. It would get to see the world react to this discovery of Stanley's. And it would be through the public eye that the bucket would finally understand Stanley's work.
Wow. Well, wow.
For months, he advertised and marketed his press conference, building excitement around it, developing and rehearsing
Looks the
it
same
until
so
it couldn't
far.
be refined a single measure further. When the big day arrived, Stanley was as prepared as he'd ever been for anything in his life.
Everything looks the same so far. Oh, there's that.
This was it. One last chance to win the bucket over. One opportunity to share a true connection with a loved one.
Three. Like the Trinity. 3. 3's a well-rounded number. It's got curves and shit.
There was no one here.
Damn.
Nobody had come to the press conference to hear Stanley speak, to listen to him talk about what it really means to press the number 3 on a keypad over and over. He was unloved, uninteresting, he was a failure, and in that moment Stanley knew that the bucket would never again take him seriously. There would be no connection, no deeper understanding. The bucket merely sat there in his arms, indifferent. And so it began that slowly,
might as
over
well
many
leave then.
years, the two of them grew more and more distant. They spoke less and less, neither wishing to state the obvious, that any sense of real respect between them had eroded since that day at the press conference. There would be no more games, no more long conversations about passion and pursuit, only a silence that consumed the space between friends. And Stanley,
Sad. Whatever.
having for once in his life discovered the warmth and comfort of true companionship, was cast back into the unremarkable normalcy of loneliness.
Sad. Whatever. I'll do one more. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling... What was that subtitle? God only knows. I don't know.
My God, the bumpscosity in here is absolutely overwhelming.
It's fine.
You people have got to be nuts.
It's fine.
How can you stand this much bumpscosity?
Because it looks good. Look at this. Hey, they didn't put one. They took my suggestion. Maybe next time they could take my bump off. This ain't gonna work if you can't pronounce it. Whatever. Are you here at least? No.
The good old bucket. Just Stanley and the bucket. Off on another thrilling adventure together.
Wait.
Stanley took the bucket with him into this little hallway and closed the doors. This was their hideout. No one would ever find them here. Of course, no one would ever find them anyway because everyone was missing. But Stanley chose to ignore this fact and instead focus on how cool the hideout was. Just him and the bucket, two renegade heroes against the world, inside their secret, undetectable hideout, here, next to room 417. What a treat.
What a treat. What a tweet. Yay. I don't think there's anything else in here, though.
Ah, no, apparently not. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
I might as well finish off the left doors today. Wow.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Hello.
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines. And now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think, Stanley? What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by one? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
I like Figlies. And then we'll end it here.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fined for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd.
Watch out for the killer.
He felt himself floating off the ground.
Oh, God.
Oh, gracious, he exclaimed.
Wait, can I go
Without
in the car?
my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it.
Please?
Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him. Stanley! Stanley, it's me!
Can I get in the car?
Bucket! Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket. Come to me, Stanley. Find me.
I want to climb on the car.
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks.
I'll hide
He
over
knew
here.
where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along.
Bucket
It was
heart.
incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out.
Understandable. Whatever.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Mariella.
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work.
Hey, she's
But on
got
this
her little bucket.
particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body
She
of a
loves her
man
little bucket.
who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of
He had no
course
bucket.
he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him.
Bucket.
Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place.
Dang.
How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything.
Thank
Heck
goodness.
yes, she thought to herself. My
life kicks ass.
And she backflipped all the way to work.
Fucking badass. Yeah. Well, that's enough endings. And enough cut time cleared for with extra fun times.
Goodbye. Farewell.